The Triforce, arguably the most important relic in the Zelda franchise, has gone missing. After it was, for the most part, omitted from Breath of the Wild, Zelda fans were hopeful that the mystery of the Triforce's true whereabouts would be revealed in the highly anticipated sequel. However, after playing through Tears of the Kingdom, we would come to learn that there was no Triforce to be found. With Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom set so far into the future compared to all of the previous Zelda titles, we were left wondering if the Triforce had simply been lost to time, just like many other things we've come to know within the Zelda universe. So is the Triforce truly a relic of the past, never again to be needed in the battle against the Gerudo King? Or is it actually hiding in plain sight? The Triforce has been a core piece of the Zelda franchise for the entirety of its existence. It's older than the Master Sword. It's as old as Link, Zelda, and Ganon themselves. It would certainly come as a shock to find out that they had simply abandoned the Golden Power. But what if I told you we actually see the Triforce's power being called on a handful of times? That the Triforce was very much a part of the battle against Ganondorf. That's my theory anyway. So let's talk about where the Triforce could be, and how Rauru is the key to understanding the nature of the Triforce in the era of the Wild. But very quickly before we do, this is Chat Nation, and we're tackling the mystery of the Triforce's disappearance. When you're done watching this video, I'd kindly ask if you could leave a comment letting me know your thoughts on the whereabouts of the Triforce. After all, continuing the conversation is the theme here at Chat Nation. And as you may have guessed, there are spoilers for the story of Tears of the Kingdom. I think the natural first place to look at are the known references to the Triforce. If we start with the Hylian crest, it does lead us to a pretty interesting conclusion. You can find it all throughout Hyrule Castle. You can find it amongst the ruins around Hyrule. You can even find a Triforce symbol by itself on the back of the Temple of Time, complete with the emblems of Nehru, Farash, and Din, representing the Triforce of wisdom, courage, and power. The kingdom of Hyrule that came after Rauru's kingdom maintained the Hyrulean crest that we've come to know from past Zelda titles, the one with the reference to the Triforce. This kingdom, as it turned out, was likely established hundreds of thousands of years ago before the now self-proclaimed first king and queen, that being Rauru and Sonia, established the self-proclaimed first kingdom of Hyrule. I think the difference between the two Hyrulean kingdoms, the one we know from past Zelda titles that occurred in the era of myth and legend, and the kingdom we are introduced to in the Memories of Tears of the Kingdom, is an important distinction to make. The Hyrule kingdom that was established by the Zonai king and his Hylian wife actually had a crest that looked different. After Rauru and Sonia perished thanks to the Demon King Ganondorf, some new ruler took over. That new ruler must have been a Hylian, because there were no more Zonai left once Rauru was sealed beneath Hyrule Castle, and Minoru separated her spirit from her body in order to aid Zelda in her mission to deliver the Master Sword to Link. The Hylians that already inhabited Hyrule prior to the arrival of the Zonai likely maintained the symbol we've come to know as the crest of the kingdom. Once Rauru's kingdom fell to Ganondorf and the Hylians were left to keep the kingdom running, they reinserted their symbol in place of the Zonai crest. The reason it's an important distinction to make is because we know that the Hylians have a relationship with the Triforce. But now this new race, the Zonai, appear to have godlike powers and came down from the heavens. If we are going to figure out what's going on with the Triforce, then we need to look at the era of the Zonai. Ordinarily, Ganondorf finds the Triforce in the Sacred Realm, and when he does, the other pieces just naturally make their way to the Princess of Hyrule and the hero spirit. This time around, Ganondorf isn't searching for the Sacred Realm in the Triforce. He sets his sights on the Secret Stones. But that's our first clue. I'm getting ahead of myself, but we'll come back to the Secret Stones. Let's talk about the depictions of the Triforce that we see in the memories, as these are references to the Triforce as they relate to the ancient past. After Zelda arrives and is taken back to the castle, she is given this outfit which is similar to that of Queen Sonia's. They both wear this cloth that falls down the center of their outfit. We can clearly see the Triforce at the bottom of this cloth. This also appears at the bottom of all of the other Hylian outfits that we see, including the ancient armor set that Link gets as soon as he gets to the Great Sky Island. Speaking of Sonia, in memory number 4, she reaches out to grab Zelda's hands in reassurance. When she does this, we get a pretty clear look at the Triforce depicted on the henna that runs across her arms. It's evident that symbolism is important when deciding what appears on a character's outfits, and this shows at least the Hylians either believed in or were aware of the Triforce. I specify Hylians and disclude the Zonai because I believe these outfits were a product of Sonia's relatives within the Hylians, a group with lineage dating back to the era of myth and legend, when the Triforce was regularly called upon to defeat the evil present at the time. What's more interesting, however, is the Zonai's relationship with the Triforce. The Zonai are new to the series and thus theoretically have nothing to do with the events that happened during the era of myth and legend. let's pause to address my interpretation of the timeline, because I see how the timeline of events is pretty important to my theory. In this interpretation, the timeline we knew prior to the release of Breath of the Wild is contained within a time period creating a champion describes as the era of myth and legend. This happens before Rauru and Sonia established their Kingdom of Hyrule. A more detailed timeline video and explanation is deserving of its own video, so I won't lay everything out for now, but if you are interested in having me cover that and you aren't already subscribed, go ahead and pulverize the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that when I do post that video, you'll know right away. Alright, so we are introduced to the Zonai through Rauru and Minoru. If we look at Rauru's outfit, he too carries references to the Triforce, although they take on a different form compared to the Hylian outfits. On what I guess is his shirt are these golden triangles that cover it all the way around. You will also notice them on Minoru's scarf? Whatever this is. The triangles cascade rather than make up a larger Triforce. Being a species that comes from the heavens and are likely more closely tied to where the Triforce originated, there might be some relevance to how the artifact is represented. It also appears on the elemental charged armor sets, but what's interesting about these is that the armor sets contain the Triforce depiction worn by the Zonai, as well as how it's worn by the Hylians. Now that we've covered how it's been referenced up to this point, let's take a look at the moments where we actually see the Triforce in use, because this is pretty important to understand. Let's start with its lone appearance in Breath of the Wild. After Link defeats Calamity Ganon within the observatory of Hyrule Castle, Zelda emerges from her 100-year-long struggle with the malice-infused villain. Upon defeating Ganon's boar form, the Hatred Incarnate, Zelda seals Calamity Ganon, and when she does this, the Triforce appears. She is using the power of the Triforce. This lines up with the ancient tapestry we are introduced to in the game, where the princess is shown to call upon the Triforce in order to defeat Calamity Ganon. The Triforce appearing on the back of her hand is also consistent with how it's been handled in previous Zelda titles. Once you obtained a piece of the Triforce, it showed itself by appearing on the back of the bearer's hand. The difference in Breath of the Wild was that the entire Triforce glowed on her hand, as opposed to just the Triforce of Wisdom. In Tears of the Kingdom, while way less obvious, we again see Zelda with the Triforce emanating from her hand, although this time it's a little harder to spot. I don't have the ability to give you the best look at it, but you can see the Triforce on the back of Zelda's hand during the cutscene that plays after you pull the Master Sword from the Light Dragon. This shot of Zelda pans up, and you can just barely see the Triforce on her hand. Again, it's emanating from the back of her right hand. The mystery of how or why Zelda has the full Triforce is still just that, a mystery. We don't get an answer as to how she obtained it, but if we keep digging, I think we're gonna find out. There's one more blatant appearance of the Triforce, and it actually comes from Rauru. Rauru might just be giving us the key to unlocking the truth about the Triforce. In Memory Number 6, Ganondorf and the Gerudo warriors that are loyal to him attempt to attack Hyrule in the Great Plateau with a horde of Molduga. They race down the Teobob grassland towards the Great Plateau. Rauru prepares an attack to fend off the desert foes, and he gets a boost of power from Sonia and Zelda. Now, Sonia is only known to have the power of time, so I'm not exactly sure what magic she's drawing from here, but whatever it is, Zelda has it too, and more of it. They feed their magic to Rauru, who uses his light power to launch an attack at the Molduga that killed him instantly. Let's watch that portion of the memory, and you tell me if you see what I see. Right before Rauru launches his attack, he forms a triangle with his hands, and then the Triforce flashes. If you ask me, this is a massive revelation. We've only ever seen Link, Zelda, or Ganondorf hold any portion of the Triforce, and yet now we see Rauru seemingly calling on the power of the Triforce to defeat the Molduga. Now, Rauru is known as the King of Light, due to his light power which his Secret Stone amplifies. So let's talk about this light power, because apparently it has a relationship with the Triforce. While Memory 5 is famous for explaining the process of draconification, there is another detail here that is relevant to this theory. Minoru also explains to Zelda how the Secret Stones work. I'll let Minoru tell you how his power works.
Rauru can repel or destroy evil with his power of light.
So in whatever form it takes, Rauru's light power is a counter to evil. He can summon this crazy special beam cannon to destroy a horde of Molduga because they are evil and that's what the situation called for. He can defend Demon King Ganondorf's attack on the castle because the attack is evil and he can repel it. His power must have some limitations because otherwise the battle at the imprisoning chamber should have been easy mop-up work, but the point is that Rauru has this amazing power. So that leaves us wondering, where does he get this light power from? Does he have the Triforce? If so, then how does Zelda have it? Well, let's shift the conversation over to the Secret Stones for the answer. Zelda wasn't formally gifted a Secret Stone, yet she has one. Zelda obtained her Secret Stone when she and Link stumble upon the sealed body of Ganondorf beneath Hyrule Castle. The arm holding onto Ganondorf, which we later learn is in fact Raru's arm, releases its grip when the pair arrive. Zelda picks up the stone that falls from the arm, meaning she has Raru's Secret Stone. After the encounter with Ganondorf, Zelda recalls herself back in time to the ancient past, and takes Raru's Secret Stone with her. All throughout the memories, we witness Raru and Zelda both with a Secret Stone, even though we know that they are indeed the same stone. They even take on different forms, with Raru's stone amplifying his light power, and Zelda's stone amplifying her time power. We don't really need to have the conversation on why or how this is possible, but we can simply proceed knowing it is. So Zelda and Raru can operate with the same Secret Stone in parallel without issue. Zelda mentions herself at the beginning of the game that the founders of Hyrule are her ancestors, so it's possible that the power of the Triforce was given to her through her bloodline. This would make sense because the princess from the tapestry also carries the Triforce and is able to use it against Calamity Ganon. And as far as we know, the royal bloodline is pure, explaining why Zelda is the only other person to show the power. Raru, being a Zonai, and a Zonai of prominence it seems, gets the Triforce well before we are ever introduced to him. It's possible that because he is Zonai, and therefore one with godlike powers, he is able to maintain the Triforce with no end. As for the Secret Stones, it seems that they are on an equal playing field compared to the Triforce. I don't believe the Secret Stones are shards of the Triforce, but rather were created in the same manner as the Triforce. The Secret Stones, much like the Triforce, know not of good or evil. They will imbue its wielder with amplifying power. No different than how the sages are able to obtain and amplify their powers, Ganondorf can take a Secret Stone to amplify his. Minoru tells us that the gods the Zonai descended from were responsible for the Secret Stones. So the actual gods, not necessarily the Zonai, created the Secret Stones. This lines up with what we were told in Ocarina of Time, that the three golden goddesses, Nehru, Furor, and Din, created the Triforce. The Triforce was left to the Sacred Realm, and the Secret Stones were left to the Zonai. Both can still be true. Now, for most Tears of the Kingdom players, it was quite a shock when we learned that Raru was named Raru. While Raru isn't a common name within the Zelda universe, it's an important one. Most players know Raru from Ocarina of Time as the sage left behind to watch the Sacred Realm. That's right, the same Sacred Realm that has traditionally been home to the Triforce. So if we take the hint that Nintendo is giving us, then Raru likely knows of the Sacred Realm that served as home to the Triforce. When he descended to Hyrule, he took with him the Secret Stones and the Triforce. This explains some of the biggest mysteries in Tears of the Kingdom. Why, even though evil had once again threatened Hyrule, the Triforce was not sought after. Even if the Hylians knew of the Triforce and attempted to seek it out, Raru already had it. It didn't need to be found. It had already been found. I personally find the implications of this to be incredibly significant, and if I am correct, explain why the Triforce wasn't a focal point like it is in other games. The Triforce of Courage never made its way to Link because Raru was carrying the Triforce, and then he potentially passed it on to Zelda. They both were balanced in power, wisdom, and courage. It also explains why the spirit of the hero and Princess Zelda aren't naturally present in the ancient past, another detail that confused many fans. Ganondorf certainly was alive and well and threatening Hyrule. Ordinarily, this would mean that the blood of the goddess and the spirit of the hero would be there to counter him. Maybe Raru has the spirit of the hero within him, and that's why there is no Link in the past. Zelda gets called back in time because she needs to support the spirit of the hero at both points in time. Sonia might have had the blood of the goddess, being the Queen of Hyrule, but she perished at the hands of Ganondorf. Zelda was able to step in her place. If Raru has the spirit of the hero, then that's why he can wield the Triforce. Zelda can wield it too because, as we learned in Skyward Sword, the goddess Hylia, who is still very much present in this game, was reincarnated for the very purpose of wielding the Triforce as immortal. Zelda is the reincarnation of Hylia, or at least a descendant of her. Many of these tropes that we've come to know in previous Zelda titles still exist if my theory is correct in Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. But what about you? What do you think? I'd really like to know your thoughts because if I am correct about this theory, it would answer several major questions as it relates to things that are traditionally in Zelda games that we're missing in Tears of the Kingdom. And that'll do it for this video. Thanks so much for sticking around to the very end and watching the video. If you haven't already, I hope you subscribe to the channel. This way you'll know when I post my next Nintendo or Zelda related video. I look forward to seeing your comments, and let's continue the conversation, Chat Nation.